The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading. Well, it was bound to happen sooner or later. The wheat market rallied on Tuesday fairly substantially, giving us a good technical day there. While in the meantime, corn and soybeans didn't do much of anything, slipping a little bit lower in the corn market for the most part, giving back what we got on I'm going to start that over. I'm stumbling over myself. Here we go.
It's fine.
Well, it's bound to happen sooner or later. We got a nice bounce in the wheat markets on Tuesday, a bit of good technical support there. Corn, pretty quiet. Soybeans gave back much of what we gained on Monday's session, and we got a mixed day over in the livestock trade to the downside for the most part there as well. So lots to take in and talk about. Joining us for market analysis today, Matt Bennett with agmarket.net is with us. Matt, welcome back to Market Talk. It's always good to sit down and talk with you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, bud?
I'm doing all right. Got to go back to Costco and stock up on coffee with the newborn in the house. I'm running a little low, Matt. I'm running a little low.
I've been there.
Doing good. And hearing reports from farmers for the most part getting wrapped up with planting. I know that some areas have still been pretty tough. There could be some prevent plant taken here, but all in all, it sounds like this crop has gone into the ground, and hey, we might put a little heat on it here over the next couple of weeks, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the planting intentions and crop progress. Corn's pretty much done. Beans are nearing the finish line as well. And so, the crop, I think, looks pretty good. Ratings in the 70s for both is certainly going to be good. 72 and 75, I believe. Or no, 74 on corn, I believe. Yeah. Down just a shade. Hey, I wasn't surprised by that, by the way. Some of the late corn, I think, went in maybe into some inclement conditions. So you've got to think there was probably a little bit of stress here and there. And that kind of leads into what you were talking about with the heat. A late or wet spring typically provides some agronomic challenges. And many times those challenges don't show up either until heat arrives, or until later in the growing season. So, who knows, Jesse? I don't, I think a lot of folks would say, hey, if we have a couple, 3 weeks of a little warmer, drier conditions and at least raise a crop, that's not the end of the world, because maybe this market would get a little excited about something. I'm not bullish, don't get me wrong, but I'll tell you what, my 2-week forecast got like 10 days in the 90s. And so that tells me that if you miss a rain shower or two, there's going to be some folks getting nervous, and maybe the buyers will step back in here and maybe at least give us a little bit of something.
Yeah, especially in the case of corn. I mean, Matt, corn has just really done nothing here as of late. It's felt like we've gotten very, very range bound, as if the trade is almost just saying, okay, well, the weather thing, there's not really a story here for us, but yet there's not much bearishness either. It just feels like the trade's marking time right now in the corn market.
Yeah, I can't argue with you. Corn, I mean, you have to check it for a pulse, it seems like, here lately. There's just not much going. Earlier today, though, I mean, the thing is, you're trading corn 3 cents higher or so on front month July. Hearing about some quick ship pushes, I think, for corn, depending on where you're at. Definitely in my part of the world, we're hearing about some of that. I think the farmer's just been tight-fisted enough, that there's a lot of corn out here. Okay, let's just be real clear. There's a lot of corn out here, but people are not moving it, and so whereas we push from like a nickel over basis to 13 over basis locally at one of the bigger elevators, I can see that going to a 20 under pretty quick, if you get into pollination time frame, or beyond, and you say, hey, we've got a good enough crop, this thing's gonna be pretty good. If that's the case, then Jesse, I'm afraid that once corn starts moving, this basis is going to fall apart. But yeah, it's certainly been interesting in my opinion, but the trade hasn't seemed too interested, I mean, either side of things. I thought it was very interesting today. The wheat market rallied like it did after 9 straight days lower, and then you would kind of think maybe that'd spill over into corn a little bit, but we didn't get that.
No, that's a good point too. It feels like nothing could pull this corn market higher, but also I wonder, you mentioned the farmer tight fisted. Don't want to get complacent here though, as you think about basis and more of those things you were talking about. I mean, you look on the board, December futures at 460 level. It's not
Mhm.
great, but it's a good
No.
starting point, isn't it?
I mean, if somebody is sitting on a ton of corn, they or either way, old or new, Jesse. I mean, here's the
Yeah.
deal. The reason why I said old is at 460, we had some cash bids. That's about where they're hovering. But as far as new crop goes, if you haven't done anything at all yet, I think what you have to do is you got to sit down and say, hey, where can I make the kind of money I need to make my payments? I call it a break even, but some people don't like that. Call it what you want, but to cover all my expenses, and be able to make a little money this year, what kind of price am I looking at in an average size crop? Now, clearly, there's folks that are going to tell me I don't think I can produce an average size crop right now. But there's a whole lot of folks, Jesse, that have told me I think I've got a better than average crop. And so, if that's the case, you got to understand how that works and know what price you need. Step in, maybe lock in something as a floor, and then give yourself some flexibility just in case this thing can take off and run to the upside. Because, again, I'm not bullish by any means. In fact, long term, I'm fairly bearish. I'll just be clear. Do we get a better price than what we're looking at today, between now and, I don't know, July 15th? Probably. I'd say that's a pretty fair assessment. It'd be shocking if we didn't. How much is the key, and how do you take advantage of it? And so certainly you can't take advantage of it by not putting offers in place. You got to at least do something here, be proactive, because let's just realize that if you have a couple billion bushel carry out 2 straight years, historically that doesn't bode well for prices. And we've seen that back in the late 20 teens, like 2017, 18, 19, average cash price those 3 years was all under $4.
We're talking today with Matt Bennett from agmarket.net. Matt, in the case of soybeans, before I go to wheat, felt like beans on Tuesday largely might have been a reaction to that first condition rating out from USDA. Maybe I didn't see much else in terms of that soybean market that caused us to basically give back what we gained on Monday.
There wasn't much doing, there just wasn't much going on. It has seemed to me, Jesse, for a while now that the path of least resistance has been lower for soybeans. You've got decent domestic stocks, decent world stocks. It looks like we're going to have building world stocks for this next marketing year. So in the absence of what I would say is bullish weather input out of South America, or for instance, the wheat market screaming there for a while, wheat led corn higher, which spilled over into soybeans. Maybe it took that and Brazil. I don't know. But bottom line is, in the absence of some outside help, Jesse, it just doesn't seem like this bean market's been able to rally a whole lot. Now, I would say this. I think if you do get into some hot and dry conditions over the next 2 to 3 weeks before you get that acreage report out, there's probably a chance that this bean market could find a little bit of life. I'm not saying we're going to rally through the roof, but again, I'm like with corn. I think longer term is probably a bear situation, but can you get some sort of a rally in the short run? This is the time of year to see that, so if we don't, we don't. We're fairly well marketed all the way around, corn and beans. We've just been pretty aggressive this year. It's not always like that. We just happen to get lucky this year, but so I'm not making a whole lot of sales right now. But if I hadn't made much in the way of sales, anything $11.50 to $12 on new beans, I think that's a pretty darn good sale.
Wheat on Tuesday again with a nice rally, finally breaking the downward streak. Have to think we just overdid it to the downside. That maybe, and some positioning ahead of Wednesday's WASDE report. Matt, anything else really big stand out to you with that wheat rally on Tuesday?
Not really. I think it's a matter of there's been a lot of money made to the downside here lately. Some of these folks are like, hey, I just made $1 and I was in this for a few sessions. Maybe we should buy this back going into a report. Now, the June WASDE is typically not a big market mover. Most people are looking forward to the end of the month. We know that. But at the same time, it's a WASDE, and you don't ever want to underestimate a WASDE because Bottom line, you could have some numbers thrown at you either domestically or worldwide that change the balance sheet of either. And if that's the case, you don't want to be sitting here in a situation where you've got a ton of exposure, And so, whenever you get up big playing cards, you put money in your boot, And that's what some of these traders do. And I think, hey, I'm going to take some money off the table, put it in my pocket, and wait and see what this thing does as far as the report goes.
Well, and thinking about the report, as we look at that, you mentioned it's not typically a big market mover. Is there anything, though, you're going to be watching closely to see if USDA, maybe they give us some sort of balance sheet adjustment that could potentially have an impact on the end of the month report that more people are focused on? I don't know, but your
Yeah.
thoughts on Wednesday's WASDE?
But they're not going to change production. It'd be highly unlikely to see something like that happen. And so, one of the things I'm looking at, what kind of adjustments are they going to make as far as Russia's wheat crop? I think that's something we need to keep an eye on. USDA's not really up to date on that. They're not maybe up to date on South American production either. And so those are some of the things that could change the balance sheet enough that people would at least pay attention and notice it. I don't think that you're going to get any massive movement, considering some of our historically very big reports. We haven't been able to get anything close to a limit move in some time, and there for a while, Jesse, the limit moves on report days were almost something that you expected, but anymore, we just don't see something like that occur.
Well, I think too, you mentioned the Russian wheat crop. I wonder with the turkey news, them being such a big importer of Russian wheat, if that news plays into this WASDE on the global picture at all either. That's one thing I could be curious about, I guess, with that
Mm.
news of import bans coming out of Turkey.
Yeah, I mean, the import ban is going to be in place there. It looks like it's mostly designed for their producer. Turkey typically imports quite a bit of wheat from Russia. What we have to understand, though, they're doing this to stabilize prices, help producers get a good price in their country. And so ultimately, it's not really going to change the global balance sheet by any means. It's just changing buying time frames and buying habits, if you will. And so I do think it's played into the market. Don't get me wrong, but I think if you're playing the long game, you got to understand we probably have enough wheat. Wheat of the big three, though, is the one that you're seeing, in my opinion, relatively speaking, much smaller stocks than what you've seen the last few years. Whereas on corn and soybeans, of course, stocks don't seem to be any issue whatsoever. So wheat does have some bright spots to it for sure.
I couldn't agree more. I heard some comments on social media. India is very dry now as well. So that's something else I think could play into that
Mm.
global wheat picture. I want to give us some time for livestock here, real quick, as well, though, Matt. Cattle and hogs, a bit of a down day there Tuesday after we started the week so well in the cattle trade. But, out of anything, this cattle market's been chugging along here, digesting that HPAI news. Feels like that's a old story now in the market. Your thoughts of the cattle trade here right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a boring trade, really, right now. I mean, ultimately, you've got some headwinds for this cattle market, with bird flu but bottom line is this, Jesse, the fundamentals are still very, very strong. Okay. I'm not saying you're going to rally to new all time highs. It wouldn't shock me if we didn't make a run towards that. I think you're going to pretty much piggyback several cattle on feed reports together that are going to be pretty bullish. But the trade knows that. And so it's a little complicated. It's hard to trade it. If I was a cattle producer, though, I've said this for a long time. I think if you get to where whatever delivery month you're on and you feel like you can get into the mid 180s or even better, I think it's possible. But if you get into the mid 180s, I think it's a good place to step in and hedge some risk. It'd be kind of like selling 5 1/4 corn. Do you want to sell it all at that time if you haven't produced it? Probably not. But should you set a floor in place at a price level you haven't seen in a while? Yeah, you probably should. So longer term on cattle, I think that I'm still fairly friendly. But at the same time, I think when the party's over this time around, Jesse, whether it's 2 months from now or this fall, I think it could be over for a little bit. I think you could see a pretty massive sell-off on the backside of this thing.
Wonder if the cattle feeder should be looking at any sort of feed needs as well here with the corn market where it's at. I highly doubt wheat's getting into the feed bunk at these prices, but you never know. I guess your thoughts from the feeder perspective, if they should be locking in some of those feed needs right now.
If we don't have some sort of a drought action, Jesse, I think that feed could get a little cheaper. Okay. I think corn prices could get a little cheaper. I think, $4 and below corn is certainly in the realm of possibilities. I know everybody's been super bearish forever. People have tossed those numbers out. We have looked at it as a team, the historical significance of the stocks numbers we're looking at. We've had a very strong correlation for quite some time now between 2014 and 2024. And so if you're looking for a corn rally, don't go back and look at that 2014 chart if you think that it's going to follow closely, because it got pretty rough there towards the middle of the year and following out into the fall time frame. So yeah, I think feed needs could get a little bit cheaper. I think just with anything, you got to spread your risk out though. So I'm not sure I'd ride on all of it. But by all means, I wouldn't get in a huge hurry on a pretty decent chunk of what I was looking to cover.
All right. Well, I know we're up against the clock. We got to let you go here. Final thoughts from you real quick. Anything you want to mention or reiterate to folks listening into the show today?
Yeah, I mean, the next 3, 4, 5 weeks is prime selling opportunities generally. And so have offers in. Step in and make some sales if you get an opportunity to, because, bottom line, the backside of these things, if stocks end up where they're at, I think could be pretty rough. So.
Well, I know folks can reach out to you and the Ag Market team with questions. Agmarket.net's the best place to start to take a look at your guys' intel, contact info, and much, much more. Matt Bennett, agmarket.net. It's always good to talk with you, my friend. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.
Same to you, bud.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@MarketTalkAg and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.